My stepmother smirked before the first word was read, like she already owned my father's last breath. The room was too bright for a day like this, sunlight cutting across the polished wood table and catching motes of dust that had nowhere to land. Mr. Harland sat at the head, a soft-spoken lawyer with silver hair and careful hands, the kind of man who weighed words before letting them leave his mouth. He cleared his throat. The wall clock ticked like it was counting down. Leela's nail tapped a slow rhythm on her cup, patient, smug. She wore a pale suit, expensive and soft, almost apologetic. A strand of pearls lay at her throat like tears she'd never shed. She did not look at me. She looked through me, past me, toward the papers she believed were hers. I could feel my father here anyway. His cologne still clung to the lining of my coat. The chair cushion gave under me like memory. In my pocket, my fingers curled around his old brass keychain, the one with the tiny compass that never quite found north. He used to laugh about that. He'd say, "We don't always need north, kiddo. Sometimes we just need the road we're on." The road had led me here. I didn't know if that was a blessing or a trap. "Thank you for coming," said Mr. Harland, glancing at me, then at Leela, and then at the empty chair someone had thoughtfully pushed to the side. "I know this is difficult." "On the contrary," Leela said lightly, "closure is healthy." Healthy, the way she rolled that word in her mouth, sweetening it. Healthy when my father was gone. Healthy when the house felt like a museum of a man she'd rearranged. Healthy when every room whispered a different story and none of them sounded like mine. A recorder sat in the middle of the table, its red light sleeping. A legal assistant hovered near the window with a stack of copies and calm hands. The air vent lifted the corner of the top page by a breath. The hum of the building moved under our silence. Before I tell you how that room changed my life, before I tell you what was in those pages and what wasn't, I want you with me for this. Smash that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. If you've ever sat at a table like this, if you've ever felt a smirk aimed at your heart, you know. "Let's begin," said Mr. Harland. He pressed the button. The red light woke, steady and unblinking. He slid his glasses up and spoke my father's full name. It landed heavy, a stone into still water. The first ripple hit me in the chest. I hadn't slept. I hadn't eaten. The last real thing I tasted was the orange popsicle Dad and I shared the August before he married Leela. He'd leaned back, sun in his eyes, and said his life was starting over. He meant it. He meant everything he said. That's the kind of man he was. That's why this felt like a betrayal not of him, but of sense. Of the idea that good men get good endings. "I want to state that this will was reviewed and signed on." He checked the date. His brow tightened a hair. Not enough for anyone else. I saw it. My mind took a picture. "And as per the decedent's instructions, this reading is to include both primary beneficiaries present." "Of course," Leela murmured, finally turning to look at me. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "We're family." Family? The woman who adjusted the framed photos on the mantel so my mother's smile never faced the room directly. The woman who moved into our house and into our rhythm until even our quiet didn't belong to us. Family. "Are you okay?" the assistant's eyes asked when they flicked up. I gave a small nod. I had become an expert at small nods. "As to the estate," the lawyer continued, even as his thumb traced the page margin, "the document outlines the distribution of assets, property, and specific instructions." Leela folded her hands like she was waiting for a blessing. My heart tried to crawl up my throat. The top page had a crease like it had been turned and turned again. Tension pulled the air taut. Raise the curtain. Reveal the scene. It felt like a stage. I hated stages. At least on a stage, you chose your lines. She'd been calm at the funeral. Calm and composed and generous to strangers with hugs that never really touched. That smirk today had been hiding under her veil of sorrow, waiting its cue. I had seen it then. I saw it now. The pen near my hand rolled as I shifted. It stopped against a small envelope tucked beneath the stack. Cream, heavy, unmarked. My father loved paper that felt like something. My eyes snagged on it, then away. Not yet. The clock got louder. Outside, a siren wailed somewhere, far and ordinary. Life keeps moving even when yours stops. "I'll begin with the personal letter addressed to," his voice softened. He looked at me. "Addressed to you." Heat hit my face. Leela's eyebrow twitched, just a crack in the paint. "I didn't know there was a letter," she said, her smile slipping and snapping back. "Tom was very organized. He told me he wouldn't complicate things." My father loved lists and labels. He hid small surprises in folded napkins and Post-its. He would never complicate things unless he needed to, unless truth weighed more than silence. "Tom knew what he was doing," said the lawyer. He slid the envelope a few inches closer to me. "We'll come back to this at the appropriate time." "We'll come back to this. Appropriate time. Since when did time ask what I needed?" The charm bracelet on her wrist chimed as Leela shifted, a pretty sound for an ugly mood. "Let's get to the main document," she said. "No need for sidebars." "No sidebar," he replied. "Just his plan." "His plan," I whispered. "Yes," he said. "His plan." He turned the first page. Air gathered in his lungs and held. He glanced at me, warning or care, I couldn't tell. Then at Leela, who tilted her chin as if to say, "Go on, we know how this ends." "Did we?" "As executor of this will," he read, "I am to follow the instructions without deviation." He paused, and the pause was a whole life. Sunday pancakes, watermelon cut outside, his boots by the door, facing the world because he always needed them. The note he left on my first day of college: "Proud of you, kiddo. The world will try to tell you who you are. Don't let it." "You're stalling," Leela said. The smile was gone now. "Read it." I pressed my hands on my knees to stop the shake. The room tilted and righted like a boat. Somewhere my father's voice told me to breathe. I did. I tasted lemon polish and old paper and fear. If I tell you I was ready, I'd be lying. I wasn't ready. I was willing. Sometimes willing is all you have. He opened his mouth to read the first line. The recorder flashed, the red light catching the gold in Leela's ring, a flare like a signal. Everything in me leaned forward. But to understand why that first line broke her smirk and steadied my heart, you need to know how we got here. Who my father was before Leela smiled her way into our lives, and who I was before I learned love can be used like a door, opened for some, closed on others. Because nothing at that table makes sense without the story that built it. To understand that smirk, you have to see how she slipped into our world like a summer storm. You don't feel soaked until you're drenched. Dad met Leela at a house showing, the kind with candles burning for no reason and a tray of cheeses no one really eats. She was the real estate agent with glossed hair and a laugh that sounded like a promise. She stood at the window and sold the sunset instead of the square footage. When Dad came home, he didn't talk about her looks. He said, "She listens." It was the first winter he'd smiled like that since Mom. We were careful with that word. Mom. We said it like a glass bell. 6 winters had passed since she left. 6 winters of Dad burning pancakes, buying the wrong detergent, fixing a sink that wasn't broken because his hands didn't know stillness. He did more than his best. He believed in small, good things. He refilled the bird feeder in storms. He returned library books on time. He taught me to check the oil, tighten hinges, and walk away from anyone who didn't treat me right. He was the kind of man people forget is rare. When he told me about Leela, I felt something I was ashamed of. Relief. Relief he might not eat alone. Relief he might laugh on Thursdays. Relief the house might hold music again, even if not Mom's piano. I met Leela a month later in a cafe that smelled like cinnamon toast. She wore a soft gray sweater. Her perfume followed me home. "Hi, sweetheart," she said, holding my name like she'd practiced. She asked about my job, my friends, my day. She touched my necklace, Dad's little gold key, and said she loved it. Her fingers were cool. She didn't try to replace my mother. She said so, often, with a tone that made me wonder if she already was. She laughed at Dad's bad jokes. She brought cupcakes that looked like roses. She wore red on Valentine's Day and tucked her hand into his elbow like she'd always known the way. At the wedding, in a small garden behind a restored inn, she cried pretty tears and thanked me for sharing my father. Share. As if he were a book. As if love was a shelf you could rearrange. White lights in the trees. I wore blue because Mom loved blue. Dad looked softer in his suit, lighter, like a right song had taught his bones to dance again. I tied hope around fear and told it to hold. Leela moved in gently. A plant here, a throw pillow there. Yellow will make the kitchen brighter, she suggested. Dad let her pick the shade. Some mornings it did look like sunshine. There were dinners where she asked for childhood stories, and Dad leaned back, smiling at the remembering. Evenings on the porch where she told me about her mother working nights and making soup that stretched a week. She held my memories like they were hers too. But there were tiny pricks. She adjusted the mantel so Mom's photo shifted to the edge. The frame was crooked, she said. She suggested donating Mom's piano. No one plays it, it's taking up space. Dad touched the top like petting a sleeping cat. I want to hear music, not dust, he told me later. We gave it away to a school. I told myself I was good for agreeing. Love lets go. Love makes room even when it hurts your ribs. Leela loved to host. Fresh flowers on Fridays, names of Dad's friends memorized, articles forwarded to me with cheerful thought of you. Notes always an exclamation point. Excitement where questions should be. She wrapped opinions as suggestions. Less store trips, delivery is easier. New barber, modernize him. Call before stopping by helps with meal planning. Change the cleaner pickup, Mondays are too early. Move his tool bench, it looks cluttered. You don't really use all of that, do you? He did. He loved that bench. I don't mind, he said and moved it. He's happy, I told myself. She's easing his life. I didn't see she wasn't after ease. She was building a system. In her system, access was a luxury only she could grant. Dad ran a small renovation business. He built staircases that felt like they'd always belonged in a house. He liked honest wood, lines that made sense, the smell of pencil shavings and coffee. Leela asked about clients, contracts, invoices. I can streamline your filing, she offered. I know people who can help you scale. She said scale like a ladder with no top. He smiled. He liked coming home before dark. The first time I saw her sharp edge was a week after their mini-moon. I arrived with groceries, bread, eggs, a lemon tart he liked. Leela opened the door a crack and smiled wide. Her eyes were cold. You should text first, sweetheart. We had plans. I glanced past her. The house was quiet. His boots were by the door, pointed out. I won't be long, I said, lifting the bag. Just dropping this. She didn't open wider. You're sweet. We're making a new routine, she said, leaning on me like it was a fence I couldn't cross. I stepped back. Okay, I said. Of course. She took the bag like she was doing me a favor. You're an angel, she said. I'll tell him you stopped by. I should have insisted, but people like Leela count on you wanting to be easy. When I saw Dad later that week, he hugged me the same, cedar and coffee. He looked tired, like the sun had moved a little away from him. You okay? I asked. Wedding aftermath, he smiled. Too much cake, not enough sleep. We watched a storm roll in from the porch swing. Tom, the plumber's here, Leela called. He squeezed my hand. Got to go, he said. It made sense. She handled house things. She was helpful. That was the story, the one I chose. If there were cracks, I filled them with excuses. If there were shadows, I turned a lamp toward something else. You can forgive 100 small cuts when you think someone is reaching for a bandage. But cuts still bleed. 100 can drain you just the same. By fall, the house felt different. Not sad, not happy, curated like it belonged to an idea. Leela changed the plates, towels, the height of the calendar, the place the tea lived. She changed goodbye, too. Call me when you get home, Dad always said. Leela added, text me, too. Small, yes, but it felt like a claim. Before you ask why I didn't do more, remember this. When someone you love seems happy, you stand in the hallway so they can have the living room. You tell yourself you're strong enough to wait. You trust, because that's what you were taught. And then one day, trust bends. You don't hear the snap at first. You just notice your breath isn't as steady as it used to be. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. One soft change after another, and then the changes weren't soft anymore. Dad laughed less in winter. He called me less. When I called him, sometimes he didn't pick up. A text would pop up from Leela instead. He's resting. He's showering. He's on a walk, we'll call later. Later became a week. A week became 2. I blamed the season, work, anything but the small stone in my gut. The first time he sounded truly tired, he called me by Mom's old nickname for me, one he hadn't used in years. He caught himself, laughed, apologized. Brain fog, he said. I'm fine. Leela took the phone without asking. He's fine, she repeated, cheerful. I've got him on a new vitamin routine. Vitamins. I wanted to see the bottle, read the label, be the kind of daughter who didn't need to ask. In January, we missed pancakes 3 Sundays in a row. We had never missed 3. On the 3rd, I drove over. The driveway was half shoveled, like someone got tired. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. The door opened a few inches. Leela's face pale and glossy. Oh, sweetheart, we were just headed out, so sorry. I peered past her. Hall light on. Quiet, his boots there. A soft cough from the living room. Dad, I called. She stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her. He has a cold, she said. Nothing serious, I don't want you to catch it. She touched my arm. I flinched. Her smile didn't move. I'll tell him you love him, she said. I know he loves you. Let me see him, I said, steady. Please. She looked at my face like it was a stain she could lift later. Another time, she murmured. The doctor says rest is key. She didn't move until I left. I sat in my car and shook. I texted Dad, I love you, call when you can. He sent a heart, not his usual thumbs up, not words, a heart. I stared at it until it blurred. Rosa, the housekeeper who'd been with us since I was a kid, called a week later. Miss, she said softly, he looks tired. He says he is fine, but he stares at the garden and doesn't blink. He asked me where the little silver frame was. Mom's frame. Me and Dad at the fair, cotton candy on our faces. It's in a box, Rosa said. In the pantry. She said it doesn't go with the new living room colors. Grief with a palette. I insisted on the doctor the next week. I called, I scheduled, I picked him up while Leela was at a showing. He walked slower. He held my arm like a railing. He joked about getting old. He told the doctor about fatigue and fog. He didn't mention the texts that didn't sound like him. The doctor used careful words, maybe stress, maybe sleep, tests, could be nothing, could be something that wants to be something. Keep an eye on him, he told me. Are you with him regularly? Dad said, I am well taken care of. He looked at me. Help me, his eyes said. Don't make a scene, his words added. We put hope on the calendar. Then the calendar moved. Appointments shifted. His wife moved him to a specialist, the receptionist said. Specialist where? When? I called Leela. No answer. A smiley face text, all handled. All handled, her refrain. She handled finances, my area. Calls, you're busy. The story other people got, it's easier to have one narrator. She said it like a joke. It was. I brought soup because when you don't know what else to do, you bring soup. Rosa met me at the door, apron damp. He is sleeping, she whispered. But he asked for you. She glanced down the hall. Quiet. Go, she said, pushing me gently, before she comes back. I slipped into the dim living room. Curtains half drawn, TV off. Dad in his chair, blanket over his lap, face turned to the window like he was listening for something. Dad, I said, and the word broke. His eyes opened. They were still his. He smiled. Relief washed me clean. I knelt and took his hand. There you are, he said, thin voice, warm anyway. You always find the shortcut. I brought soup, I said, the cheap kind. He laughed a little, tried to sit up. I helped him. He looked at the doorway, then back at me. His voice dropped. Listen, kiddo, he whispered. If anything happens, if I caw, he swallowed. Words were hard. They had never been hard for him. Harland, he said, go to him. I will, I said, but nothing's happening. You're okay. My own voice sounded like a lullaby. You're okay. He squeezed my hand. He looked like he wanted to say more. The front door clicked open. Leela's voice floated in, bright. Honey, I brought those berries you like. He let go of me and leaned back, closed his eyes, pretended to sleep. When she walked in, she smiled at me like I'd wandered into the wrong house. Oh, sweetheart, she said. You should have called. I did, I said. She glanced at her phone, surprised on purpose. Oh my, slipped my mind. She brushed his hair with gentle fingers. He needs rest, she said. I stood. I kissed his warm cheek. Rest, I echoed, because I had no better word to throw into the air to keep others away. In the hall, I leaned against the wall until my knees remembered their job. Rosa slipped a tissue into my hand without looking at me. He hides things in the garage sometimes, she murmured. Little things he is afraid will be thrown away. A small sentence. A secret map. Thank you, I whispered. She went back to work. Leela walked me to the door like a hostess ending a party. "We'll let you know about the test results," she said. We. The results never came. There was always another test, another opinion, another conflict. Time sagged like a rope with too much weight. In an old jacket of his, I found a small key taped inside the pocket. Thin, flat, numbers stamped on it. Not for a door, not for a car. I held it like heat. I told myself I'd ask him when the time was right. I didn't know time had already turned its back. The morning the call came, the sky was as blue as Mom's favorite bowl. I poured coffee and burned my tongue because I was doing 8 things at once to avoid the one thing I didn't want to feel. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost let it ring out. I didn't. Leela's voice was calm. She stopped. "He's gone," she said. "In his sleep, peaceful." Gone. The word opened and everything fell through. The cup hit the floor and broke like small thunder. Coffee spread like a dark tide. I stood in the middle of it and felt nothing. Then I felt everything. I sank to my knees and pressed my palms to the tile. My heart made a sound I didn't know it could make. I didn't cry. Not yet. I picked up the largest piece of the cup like it could tell me a different story if I squeezed hard enough. I don't remember the drive. I don't remember who I saw first. I remember lemon polish everywhere, covering even sadness. I remember Leela's arms around me with no warmth. Dad's chair, the shape of him forever gone. Rosa's red eyes and the way she nodded once, a signal. The small key in my pocket pressing into my leg when I sat. His voice in my head, "Go to Harland." If I'd known what the will reading would reveal, I would have recorded every breath between that call and the polished table and Leela's smirk. Those were the last moments when I believed the world was as simple as love plus time. The world isn't simple. Truth can take years to build and one envelope to open. We buried my father on a Thursday. The sun pretended to be kind. The wind refused. The church smelled like lilies and old wood, the kind of smell that says we've held sorrow before and we know how to hold yours. Leela wore black silk that drank the light, her hair pinned in a low twist that made her look softer than I knew she was. She stood at the entrance like a hostess greeting late guests. People parted around her the way water parts around a rock, not because she asked, but because she built herself to be in the way. The program was printed on heavy cream paper. She had chosen a serif font that looked expensive and thoughtful. Dad would have rolled his eyes at the font. He liked block letters and clear dates. Simple. On the front, a photo of him on the dock, sleeves rolled, sun on his face. Not the one I would have picked, but I could see why she did. It said, "See, he had peace." Inside, the order of service. I found my name near the bottom. "Remarks by daughter," it read, like I was a role in a play. When I glanced up, Leela smiled and touched my elbow. "I put you after the song," she murmured. "It flows better." Flow, as if grief was a river and she could redirect it with a little landscaping. People came who loved him, and people came who loved the idea of him. That's how funerals are. Mr. Patel from next door, who taught his kids to shoot hoops on our driveway. Mrs. Green from the hardware store, who always kept an extra roll of blue tape behind the register because she said Dad would forget to buy it otherwise. Men from job sites with rough hands and clean shirts. A few women with casseroles and stories that started with, "He once helped me fix a cabinet and refused to take a dime." I smiled until my cheeks ached. I answered the same question 20 different ways. "How are you? How are you? How are you?" When it was my turn to speak, my legs felt made of glass. I walked to the front, past the flowers arranged like armor. I touched the side of the podium the way he would touch a doorframe when he walked through, a habit he picked up from somewhere and never put down. "Dad taught me how to fix things," I began. My voice sounded like someone else's for a second, too steady. "Not just shelves and squeaky hinges. He taught me how to fix a bad day with a longer walk. He taught me how to fix a broken promise with a true apology. He taught me how to fix loneliness by making room at the table. He believed in wood that shows its grain. He believed in truth that shows its heart." I looked at the photo on the program. If love was a tool, he kept it sharp and clean. He never used it to cut people. He used it to build. For a moment, the room went quiet in the way that feels like it belongs to you. I felt him. I swear I did. Leela dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief, careful not to smudge. When I finished, people stood. Not the standing ovation kind, just the gentle stand of people who needed to move their bodies because their hearts were full. After, in the church hall, there were tables of food and stories told in circles. Leela floated between groups, gracious, efficient. She corrected little details that didn't matter. It was a yellow truck, actually, not blue. He preferred cedar, not oak. He never ate those donuts. He was very health conscious. That last one made me bark a laugh that turned into a cough. He loved those donuts. He pretended not to. He ate them anyway when no one watched. I know because I learned to watch. I caught Rosa's eye near the coffee urn. She had taken off her apron and wore a simple black dress. Grief made her smaller and stronger at once. She hugged me tight, then motioned with her chin toward the far corner. Mr. Harland stood there, not intruding, a small black folder under his arm. His face softened when he saw me. He looked like someone who had set a heavy box down and didn't know when he had to pick it up again. "I didn't expect to see you here," I said when I reached him. "I didn't expect not to," he replied. His voice was gentle, even in noise. He was a friend before he was a client. "Since when?" I asked, surprised. "Since a staircase that wouldn't sit right in my old house," he said. "He fixed it in an afternoon and refused to charge me full price. He said bad math ruins good friendships." He glanced at Leela, then back to me. "I'm sorry for your loss," he added, official and true at once. Leela noticed us and drifted closer, a smile already arranged. "Mr. Harland," she said warmly, extending her hand as if they were partners in the same soft war. "Thank you for coming. You and Tom were very close. He spoke highly of your professionalism." The pause before the last word was so slight you would have missed it if you hadn't been listening with all your skin. He nodded. "He was a good man." "We'll set up a time to handle the necessities," she said. "I don't want to drag this out. Grief needs structure." "Grief needs space," he said, mild but clear. Then to both of us, "Per his instructions, the reading will be at my office. Tuesday at 10 works." Her smile tightened by a thread. "Tuesday is early. Perhaps the following week. I have a charity luncheon." He did not move. "Tuesday," he repeated. He was definitive. I looked at him, at the quiet in his eyes. Something in my chest loosened. "I'll be there," I said. "Lovely," Leela said brightly, already calculating something behind her pupils. "We'll be there." People kept coming to touch my arm, to say the things we say because language is small when someone you love vanishes from the room but not from the air. I nodded. I said thank you. I said he'd be grateful. I said we are okay. I said so many words that lost meaning and became sound. In between, Leela leaned in to whisper little corrections to my grief. "He wouldn't want you to cry in front of people. You should eat something. Maybe don't wear that necklace at the reading. It might be too emotional." My hand went to the small gold key at my throat. Dad's key. I kept it there above my pulse where I could feel it steady me. Back at the house, the door opened on lemon polish and the careful hum of a place trying to behave. The tables were set up with trays of food, labels written in Leela's round, neat script. Gluten-free. Vegetarian. No nuts. Thoughtful, yes. Thorough, yes. It was like she wanted a grade at the end. People moved through the rooms with plates and memories, leaving both half full. I stood near the bookshelf where Dad kept the dog-eared paperbacks he loved. I slid one out. Notes in the margins, his handwriting running along the lines like a friend trying to keep up with a runner. Who writes in a book if they plan to never read it again? People who think they'll live forever. People like us. I tried to slip down the hall to his workshop. The door was closed. The knob didn't turn. A new lock, stupid little thing. Spins, stops. Leela appeared like a mirror catching light. "Oh," she said, all sympathy. "I had that door secured. People wander at gatherings. Liability, you know." "Liability," I echoed, tasting the word. "It's his workspace." "Was," she corrected softly. "It was." She laid a hand on the door as if she had the right. "We'll go through things together when it's time." "What time is that?" I asked, and the edge in my voice surprised both of us. She tilted her head. "When you're ready," she said, then added, "and when I am." Rosa brushed past us with a tray. Her eyes touched mine, then slid to Leela's hand on the door, then back to me. A message passed that wasn't a sentence. After she disappeared into the kitchen, I pressed my fingers to my pocket and found the thin key I had taped inside. It was small and certain against my skin, not for this lock. For another, I didn't know which. Yet. In the living room, someone had set up a memory table. Photos of Dad at different ages, different faces of the same man. A comb that had always lived in his truck. A small wooden bird he carved one winter when it wouldn't stop snowing. A note in his scrawl under a smooth river stone. Keep it simple. Leela had placed her bouquet near the center white roses that looked like they belonged in a window advertisement. I looked for a photo of Mom and found one tucked at the edge, half covered by a candle. I moved it forward. Leela noticed later and shifted another frame subtly so the balance returned to her version of things. I found a quiet corner near the stairs and sank onto the bottom step, the way I used to as a kid when I listened to adult voices float above me like radio. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. It was a photo. Dad and Leela on the front porch, taken from across the street sometime in the fall. He was signing something on a clipboard. A man I didn't recognize held it. The text below said, "Thought you should have this." No name. I stared so long my eyes threatened to fog over. When I looked up, the front door opened and Mr. Patel stepped in, cap in hand. He saw me on the stairs and came over. "Hey, kid," he said softly. He sat on the step below me like we were back in time, me with skinned knees, him with an ice cream coupon he didn't need. "Your dad was a good one." "I know," I said. He hesitated. "Couple weeks back," he murmured, lowering his voice. "Some guy in a suit came to the house, not the lawyer, different one, big watch, car with tinted windows. I was in my yard hanging lights. Your dad didn't like the paper the man brought." He shook his head. "Then she came out." He nodded toward the living room, and suddenly there was a pen. He signed, but he looked unhappy. He scratched his cheek, embarrassed to be telling me this. Could be nothing, just. Seemed like nothing that wanted to be something. I felt the world tilt and right itself again. "Thank you," I said. He patted my knee awkwardly and went to find coffee. I found myself back in the kitchen where things made sense. Soap, water, cups. Rosa stood at the sink, rinsing plates with quiet fury. "Do you need help?" I asked. "Always," she said without looking at me. Then, softer, "He asked about the safe last week." "What safe?" I asked. "The little one," she said. "In the back of the closet behind the coats. He told me to remind him later, but later," her voice trailed off. We shared the same later now. It had no edges. I excused myself and slipped down the hall to the bedroom. It was neat, too neat. The kind of neat that isn't living, it's curating. His watch on the nightstand, the old baseball from a summer game in a bowl by the lamp. The closet smelled like cedar and him. I pushed the coats aside. In the back, a small metal safe, dusty around the edges like a forgotten book. A combination lock. No numbers written anywhere obvious. I pressed my forehead to the cool metal. That little key in my pocket was not for this. I knew the feel of keys. This safe wanted numbers, not teeth. Behind me, the floor sighed. I turned. Leela stood in the doorframe. "What are you doing?" she asked, not sharp, not soft, something in between. "Looking for his sweater," I lied. "The navy one. He always wore it on Sunday nights. I thought I'd take it with me." She didn't move. "It might be in the wash," she said, and I knew it was. She let her eyes flick to the safe, then back to me, a quick cut. "Please don't tire yourself," she added, the words warm and the meaning cold. "We have Tuesday." We have Tuesday. The way she said it made it sound like a weapon and a bomb. The last guests left when the sky was more blue than night. The house settled in a way that houses do when they think no one is watching. I walked through each room and said goodnight to inanimate things like they could carry a message to the person who used them. Good night, chair. Good night, lemon polish. Good night, silence. Good night, boots by the door, still facing out, ready for him to step in and go. At the front door, Leela paused with her hand on the frame. "I'm having the locks changed in the morning," she said lightly. "Just for safety, you know how many people get keys made over the years." She said it like a fact. She didn't look at me when she said it. "If you need anything, call me." I thought of the door to the workshop that already didn't turn. I thought of the safe in the closet. I thought of the key in my pocket and the number stamped on its face. I thought of the photo of a man in a suit with a clipboard. I thought of a Tuesday. "I'll see you at 10, I said. 10, she echoed, and smiled like a person who always arrives early. That night, I took Dad's navy sweater from the back of a chair where he had tossed it on a day when the weather didn't know what it wanted. I held it to my face. It smelled like him and like the air in rooms after people leave them. I sat on my couch and stared at the ceiling until the dark looked like a map I could read. I thought of the way he had squeezed my hand and told me to go to Harland. I thought of the envelope on the table in that too bright office, the one that was not for her. I thought of how a smirk can die in a second if you put the right truth in the room. When Tuesday came, I dressed in simple black and the key at my throat. I drove to a part of town where the buildings wear their years well. The elevator doors were mirror bright. I looked like my mother in reflections like that, and that calmed me. The waiting room smelled like paper and a little mint. The assistant nodded when I walked in, a trace of recognition from the funeral in her eyes. I sat in the same chair as before. The sunlight hit the same slice of table. The red light on the recorder was quiet, unblinking, waiting. The door opened. Leela swept in like a new breeze. "Good morning," she chirped, because she always made sure the morning belonged to her. I looked at her pearls and then at the envelope near my elbow, cream and heavy, with my name curled inside it like a secret waiting its time. "Ready?" Mr. Harland asked. I was as ready as anyone is when a document can change a life. I nodded. "They used enough to make the logo look like mine and the tagline word for word," I replied. I slid a printout across the table. Same font, same line, same angle. Derek went quiet the way a room goes quiet when a fuse blows. Nana's voice came then, softer than the candles, stronger than the chandelier. "Ruth," Aunt Joan snapped, like Nana had misbehaved as a child, but Nana didn't look at her. She looked at me. "Are you safe?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "I am now." "Good," Nana nodded. "Then finish." I breathed. The detail in the room sharpened. The halo around the candle flames, the grain in the wood, the small scratch in the corner of the TV from when Derek threw a controller in 2008. I turned to Mom. "I'm not doing this to embarrass you," I said. "I'm doing it because you always told me the truth doesn't break us. Lies do." Mom's eyes went wet. She nodded once like a vow. "I'm not asking to be in charge," I continued. "I'm asking for transparency. I'm asking that Aunt Joan step down as trustee, effective immediately, and that we appoint a neutral administrator. I'm asking for a full accounting. I'm asking that the sale of the farm be halted until a judge reviews these records. I'm asking that Nana's needs come first, because they always should have." Uncle Paul exhaled through his nose like a bull that's tired of charging. "And if we say no?" I slid one more paper onto the table. It wasn't a threat, it was a schedule. "Then tomorrow," I said, "a judge will say it for you." Silence, the kind that carries weight. The notary's voice was still frozen on the screen, as if even the recording knew this was bigger than a file. Aunt Joan laughed again, but it sounded like choking. "If you walk out that door, don't come back," she said. "You want to be alone, be alone." My phone chimed. 2 notes, soft, a hush. I picked it up, looked at the screen, and then at the table of people who loved me like a mirror, only when I stood still and smiled. I placed the phone face up. Quiet skis, crew ready, wheels up in 45 minutes. I took a breath and I smiled, not because I was winning, but because I was done losing. "I will never be alone," I said. "Not the way you think, not anymore." The first person to move was Derek. He lunged not at me but at the TV. Dad stood faster than I'd ever seen him stand and put a hand on the set, not rough, firm. "No," he said. Derek stopped, more surprised than blocked. He had forgotten my father wasn't made of fog. Ethan tried again, softer, like he could play the part of the peacekeeper because he had paid for his ticket with regret. "Olivia," he said, "none of this is going to land the way you think. Courts, they take forever. Families survive because we don't put each other on blast." "Families survive because we don't lie," I answered, "and because we don't take what isn't ours." Maya stood too. She looked like she might be sick. "Joan," she said, turning to our aunt, "did you really? The country club." Aunt Joan's smile snapped back into place, brittle porcelain. "I did what needed to be done to keep the family from looking poor," she said. Do you think people help poor families? They don't. They pity them. They stop inviting them. They stop taking calls. Appearances matter. Do they matter more than Nana? I asked. It wasn't a trick question. It was the only one that counted. Nana's hands were folded in her lap. The skin was thin enough to see river veins underneath. I was fine with pitiful, she murmured. We always built our own tables anyway. Mom started to cry for real then, not pretty tears, real ones. She covered her face with her hands. I should have seen, she whispered through her fingers. I should have asked more questions. You asked the questions, Aunt Joan snapped. You didn't understand the answers. I understand now, Mom said, lowering her hands. I understand my daughter isn't making this up to hurt you. Uncle Paul puffed up like a coat that didn't fit anymore. Enough, he barked, trying to sound like the sound would fix it. Olivia, you leave that drive here. We'll review with counsel. We'll get ahead of this. You won't get ahead of anything by hiding it, I said. I walked to the TV and slid the flash drive out. It was warm. Truth usually is. I tucked it into the small zip pocket in my bag, the one where I kept jewelry and hope. Besides, you don't have the only copy. Derek scoffed. Of course she doesn't. Maya reached for me. Liv, she said, voice low, please, if you go public. I'm not going public, I said. I'm going legal, big difference. She swallowed. I don't want you to hate me. I looked at my sister, the girl I shared a room with, the girl who danced in the rain with me when we were 6, the girl who tried to be small so boys wouldn't think she was too much and then tried to be big so men would think she was enough. I don't hate you, I said. I don't know how to do that. I am mad at you. And I will be for a while, but mad is not forever. This, I gestured to the table, the screen, the lies, doesn't get to be forever either. She nodded, lips pressed so tight they went colorless. Her eyes moved to Ethan like she couldn't help it. Mine didn't. His shape was a shadow in my peripheral vision. He had already taken enough of the center of my view. Olivia, Aunt Joan said, last try, sugar on gravel. You don't know the whole story. I know enough of it to stop the harm, I said. If there's more, bring it to the light. If you're right, the light won't hurt you. The room waited for me to break. I didn't. I reached for my coat. It slid over the navy dress like the night closing over the ocean. I lifted my bag. Dad moved to the end of the table and rounded it slow, like each step mattered. He stopped in front of me. For a second, his face did that thing faces do right before they bend under the weight of love. Then he pulled me into him and held me the way he had when I was 7 and scraped my knees on gravel. His voice was at my ear. I'm proud of you, he said. My chest cracked in a good way. Thanks, Dad, I said, and I sounded like my mother when she was young and still brave enough to ask for more. Mom came next. She pressed her forehead to mine. Be careful, she whispered, and call me when you land. I will, I promised. Nana didn't stand. Her hands stayed folded, but her eyes were the strongest thing in the room. I bent to her. She kissed my cheek. This is the right road, she said. It will feel lonely, it is. I felt a hand on my elbow. Ethan, of course. He had always been good at finding a closeness that didn't belong to him. Can we talk outside? He murmured. No, I said. We said everything already, you just didn't hear it. Something flickered in his jaw. I never wanted to hurt you, he said, as if intentions were a shield that protected him from consequences. You did anyway, I answered. That's the part you keep skipping. He stepped back. You're different, he said, as if that was an accusation. I am, I said, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. Derek made a low sound like a threat he hadn't grown into. If you go through with this, he muttered, you'll regret it. I turned. I regret not doing it sooner, I said. That's the only regret I'll keep. Aunt Joan pointed at the door like a queen banishing a subject. You walk out, she said. You're out. I looked past her, past the chandeliers and the photos and the lace and the lies. You can't exile someone who built her own door, I said. Watch. I moved to the entry. The coat rack still wobbled. The mirror still held the room at an angle. I slipped my keys into my pocket. The phone buzzed in my bag, 2 notes. A hush. I opened the front door. Cold air spilled in, crisp as an apple bite. I turned as if the room had something else to say. It didn't, not anything new. "Good night," I said. "Happy Thanksgiving." No one said it back. It didn't hurt the way you think. It hurt like pulling a splinter. Sharp, clean, free after. Outside, frost crackled under my boots. The sky was black blue, a color that only exists when the night is almost ready to let go. My breath fogged like speech bubbles in a comic. I walked to my car, got in, set my bag on the passenger seat, and put both hands on the wheel. My fingers shook the tiniest bit. I exhaled and then laughed, quiet real, not because it was funny, because the night felt different than it had 1 hour ago. It felt like mine. I tapped out a text to Ms. Delgado, "Leaving, see you at dawn." Her reply came fast, "Safe travels, we're ready." I looked back at the house one last time. Through the window, I could see silhouettes moving, frantic, circling like bees when someone knocks the hive. I could have stayed to soothe, to explain, to negotiate. I have done that my whole life. Tonight, I didn't. I put the car in drive. The tires crunched on frost. The radio came on low, someone singing about roads and home and how those words can mean the same thing on different days. I turned it down and listened to my own engine. It sounded healthy. So did I. The airport wasn't far, but it felt like another country. The road cut through sleeping neighborhoods and then opened into wide lanes with blue lights blinking along the edges like runway stars. I followed signs to a small building with tall glass doors and a lit wreath in the window. The letters above it read, "Night Star Aviation." Inside, warmth, the kind that doesn't brag. A coffee station stamped a tiny smile of steam into the air. A man in a navy sweater looked up from the desk and smiled like he'd been expecting me since summer. "Ms. Carter?" he asked. "Yes," I said, and my voice sounded like it had put a stone down. "Welcome," he said, coming around the counter. "I'm Ben Cruz ready, just like your app says." He winked at that, not smirking, winking, like we had a secret that made the world a little easier. "Can I take your bag?" "I've got it," I said. He nodded. "If you need anything, snacks, water, a minute, that's your couch." He motioned to a soft brown sofa near the window. Beyond it, the tarmac. A small jet waited in a pool of light, white skin gleaming, tail number neat, steps down like a promise. A woman crossed the lobby from the door to the flight line. She was bundled in a black coat, hair tucked into a knit hat, boots that looked like they had places to go. She looked about my age. She smiled, tired and real. "Red eye to a double shift," she said, lifting her coffee and a little toast. "I'm a nurse." "Court date at dawn," I said. "I'm a granddaughter." She laughed. "Good job title." We sat for a minute like travelers do, a temporary pair, a small warmth in a big night. Then Ben called our names. Outside, the cold bit without malice. On the ramp, the jet was quieter than I expected. The staircase was narrower, the carpet softer. At the top, a woman in a navy uniform waited with a smile that made you feel like you had just done something smart. "Good evening, Ms. Carter," she said. "I'm Kay, your cabin attendant. Captain West and First Officer Lynn are up front. We'll be airborne in about 10 minutes. Can I take your coat?" "Thank you," I said, handing it over. Inside, everything was small and gentle. Seats the color of oatmeal. A little aisle, windows like shy eyes. A tray set with 2 water bottles, a small dish of almonds, napkins folded into crisp white triangles. Someone had tucked a little card by my seat. Handwritten, "Quiet Skis X-Night Star, we're glad you're here." I ran my fingers over the letters. My throat tightened again in a new way, not with hurt, with gratitude. The nurse slid into the seat opposite me. "Never gets old," she said, nodding toward the window. "What does?" I asked. "Being above the things you can't fix yet," she said. "It doesn't solve it, but it helps you see the road." Kay offered to hang our bags. I kept mine by my feet and slid a hand into the side pocket to feel the flash drive. Warm. There. Real. I put my phone on airplane mode and then on my lap face down. The screen was a door. It could wait. The cockpit door opened and a man in a crisp white shirt with gold bars on his shoulders stepped back into the cabin. "Evening," he said, voice low and easy. "I'm Captain West. Weather is smooth. We'll climb to 33,000. About a 45-minute hop. You'll barely have time to close your eyes. Ms. Carter, Ms. Nguyen. He nodded to the nurse. If you need anything, Kay will take good care of you. Thanks, Captain, I said. He smiled and slipped back to the front. Kay did a short safety talk, her hands sure, her voice clear. Seatbelt. Exits. Life vest in case of a water landing we wouldn't see. The kind of talk that always sounds like common sense until you need it, and then it sounds like a prayer. We taxied. The runway lights lined up like a necklace someone had laid down on black velvet. I felt the engines wake up, a low, building hum that made the seat vibrate under my bones. The nurse closed her eyes. I watched the edge of the runway come closer, then drop away. We lifted. The city fell back, string lights of streets and homes shrinking into patterns you can't see when you're on them. The stars felt closer than the ground. Gravity loosened its grip, just enough to remind me I was more than the weight I carried. I exhaled. I had not realized I'd been holding my breath for a year. What would you carry? I thought, looking at the dark, soft curve of the earth, if no one could weigh your luggage. Kay placed a mug of tea at my elbow. Lemon, honey, the steam unfurled like silk. On us, she said softly. You look like you could use something warm. Thank you, I whispered. I curled my hands around the mug and let the heat steady me. The nurse spoke without opening her eyes. You'll win, she said. You sound like a person who brings receipts. I laughed. I bring tabs and staples. And you have a grandmother who squeezes your hand 3 times, she added, eyes still closed. That's good luck. How did you? My Nana did it, she said. Before surgeries, before storms. We went quiet. The cabin hummed. The plane cut a path through the dark like a needle through fabric, stitching sky to sky. I pulled my notebook from my bag. The cover was worn at the corners. On the first page, months ago, I had written a single sentence. Build something you can live inside. Tonight, I wrote under it, and leave the doors unlocked for the right ones. My phone lit up on the table for a second, even in airplane mode, one of those little blips that gets through when towers cross hands. A preview flashed and faded. My chest tightened. Maya, please, call me when you land. I stared at the blank space where the words had been. The world turned under us. I closed my eyes and saw candles, a lake of faces, a door opening. I fell asleep for 23 minutes and dreamed of the farm before it was a fight, just a field in daylight, wind arriving like a friend. Kay touched my arm gently. Descent, she said. I blinked. Outside, dawn had trimmed the horizon in silver. We dropped out of the dark. The runway rose to meet us. Wheels touched, soft as a promise kept. As we slowed, my phone shook to life. Signal raced back in like a tide, notifications stacked. Ms. Delgado, I'm outside. Ben from Night Star, thank you for flying quiet skis. Aunt Joan, call me now. Unknown number, this is C. Harper, counsel for Joan Carter. Cease and desist. Maya, I need to tell you something, please. Kay handed me my coat. Good luck, she said. Thank you, I said, for the sky. She smiled. Bring some back down, okay? People need it. The air on the tarmac tasted like metal and new light. Another small building, another warm lobby. Ms. Delgado waited in a gray coat that managed to look both comfortable and powerful. Her hair was smooth, her eyes less so. Sharp. Awake. How was it? She asked as she hugged me, quick and clean. Quiet, I said, like the app promised. Her mouth twitched. Good, let's go make some noise. A black sedan with a driver who didn't ask questions took us through a town waking up. A bakery sign flicked on. A man in a reflective vest waved a slow hand as if blessing our car. The courthouse sat like a stone ship at the end of Main Street, columns pale in the first light. The flag wanted to stir and didn't yet. Inside, the hallways smelled like dust that had been cleaned. We were early. Early is a kind of power. Ms. Delgado guided me to a bench outside the clerk's office. We file, she said. We get a docket number, we ask for the duty judge, we breathe, we win. Can you put that on a t-shirt? I asked. My voice shook just enough to tell the truth. She smiled with half her mouth. You don't need a shirt, she said. You have a spine." The clerk unlocked the window at 7:59 and slid back the glass. Ms. Delgado's stack of papers made a sound like a small wave hitting the shore. The clerk stamped. Slide, stamp, slide, stamp. I watched the ink pad. Dark, even, no doubts. At 8:17, a bailiff led us to a courtroom where the lights hummed and the wood gleamed. No spectators. It felt like a secret kept on purpose. The judge came in from a door behind the bench. He was younger than judges are in movies, with tired eyes and a tie the color of the sky outside. We stood. We sat. Ms. Delgado rose. The words "Your Honor" came out of her like a bell. She laid out the facts like stones on a river path. Clean, even, step here, step there. She did not perform. She did not plead. She presented. Her smile tried to climb back on her face and slid off. Then I am to be, what, a guest, in a house I made a home, given an allowance like a child. The way she said the word allowance was meant to make me ashamed. It didn't. It made me think of all the times I cut a sandwich in half and watched Dad take the smaller portion first. You are to be treated fairly, I said, my voice surprising me again. That's what he wrote, fairly and without interference. Her eyes flashed. The smirk swam up and then vanished. Something harder took its place. This won't stand without a fight, she said softly. The threat wasn't heat, it was ice. It will stand, Mr. Harland said, still steady. Because it is built on truth and time. Your counsel is welcome to review the documents. In the meantime, per his instructions, we will return to the office, record receipt of these items, and schedule the formal reading of the trust document with all parties present. Another reading, she said, and tried to laugh. It didn't sound like anything human. We walked out of the vault room, the bank manager nodding to the recorder the way you nod to a witness at the end of a long day. In the lobby, sunlight poured through tall windows. The world outside looked normal. People were arguing over parking spaces. A barista next door drew a heart in the foam. A dog pulled on its leash because it wanted to go where it wanted to go. On the sidewalk, Leela fell into step beside me. You think you've won something, she said without looking at me. You think this paper makes you strong. I stopped. I turned so we were facing each other, two women in their separate storms. I don't think paper makes me strong, I said. I think truth makes me steady. She blinked. A muscle moved in her jaw, fast and mean. You have no idea what I can do, she whispered. I know what he did, I said. I know what he built, and I know what he wanted. She smiled then, a quiet, private thing, like she'd remembered a secret exit in a house no one else knew about. We'll see, she murmured. Back in the office, Mr. Harland placed the wooden case on the table with reverence. He documented each step. He placed the trust document in front of him and looked at me. I will prepare the formal notices, he said. In the meantime, go home. Don't be alone if you can help it. I'm okay, I said, and for once I didn't hear it as a lie spoken to make other people comfortable. The compass on my keychain lay warm in my palm. The tiny needle quivered and then settled, even if it didn't know north. As I walked to the elevator, I could feel Leela behind me, a shadow that wanted to be a storm again. The doors slid open. I stepped in. I watched her in the narrowing slice of mirror as she lifted her chin and smoothed her hair back like a woman preparing for a battle she thought she'd already won. She wasn't done. Neither was I. The world looked normal on the way back to my car, birds loud, a delivery truck blocking a lane, a kid chasing his hat down the sidewalk. Inside me, nothing was normal. I felt like a window someone had washed too hard. Every edge was sharp. Every color was too clear. My phone buzzed. A message from Rosa. She is telling the locksmith to change the back door now. I told him it is not allowed. Please come. I called Mr. Harland on speaker as I drove. She's changing locks, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Document everything, he said. I'll meet you there with a printed notice. We will be calm, but we will be firm. Firm, I repeated, tasting the word. It felt new and necessary in my mouth. By the time I reached the house, a van sat crooked in the driveway, hazard lights blinking. A man in a blue shirt stood at the back door with a box of shiny metal and a face that said, I don't get paid enough for drama. Leela was on the phone at the kitchen window, her profile smooth as glass. I stepped out of the car and walked up slow. "Hi," I said to the locksmith, polite. "I'm the trustee. We're going to pause this." He blinked, glanced at Leela, then at me, caught between two scenes. "I just go where they send me," he said. "Of course," I said. "No worries." Leela appeared at the door, smile already in place like something she set out on the porch in the morning. "Sweetheart," she sang, "this is just a safety update. You can't be too careful. Trust document says no restricting access to family or staff," I said. "Changing locks without trustee keys is restriction." She laughed low. "I'm not restricting you," she said. "I'll get you a key if you ask nicely." Rosa's face hovered behind her, tight with worry. She pressed a dish towel to the counter like she was trying to wear the house's anger down to a squeak. A silver sedan rolled up. Mr. Harlan stepped out, calm in the middle of our small storm. He held a folder. He greeted the locksmith like they had met before. "Sir," he said, polite but clear, "please stop work until we resolve this. Here's a notice." He handed Leela a printed page with the trust heading at the top. "Per the trust, any interference with access ends the stipend and terminates the right to reside." Her smile flickered. "You wouldn't," she said. "Tom wouldn't." "Tom's words," he said, soft, "not mine." The locksmith looked at all of us, then at his box of shiny metal like it might give him advice. "Ma'am," he asked Leela, uncomfortable now. She inhaled, held it, let it out through her nose. "Fine," she said. "Stop for now." "Thank you," I said, not sweet, not sharp, just steady. We stood in the kitchen like actors after the lights go up, unsure of who is supposed to exit first. I could feel Dad here, the precise way his coffee mugs lined up, the nick on the edge of the counter where he dropped a wrench, the small scuff by the back door from muddy boots that had walked a good life. I didn't want to fight in this room. I wanted to sit at the table and say, "Tell me everything will be okay." But the person who could say that and mean it wasn't here anymore. What I had was paper and a compass and a choice about whether to be the hallway or the living room. "Rosa," I said gently, "would you mind making coffee? Everyone seems to need it." She nodded, grateful for a task that made sense. Leela leaned against the sink. "So what now?" she asked, faux bored. "We live under your rules, I answer to you." "You live under his," I said. "We both do." Her eyes flashed. "You think a letter and a video beat a marriage?" she whispered. "I think truth beats noise," I said. "And I think a marriage ends when love becomes a gate." She pressed her lips together and turned her head so I wouldn't see the look that crossed her face. It was quick, ugly, scared, then it was gone. After Harland left, I asked Rosa to walk with me to the bedroom. "He asked about the safe," I said. "Do you remember anything else he said?" She nodded. "He said, simple, simple," and laughed, like a joke only he knew. Simple. I stood in front of the small metal safe, its dial a stubborn little moon. "Simple," I whispered. My brain ran through numbers like a flipbook. My birthday, his mom's, their anniversary, the day we moved into this house, the day we bought the truck, too many to try at random. I remembered the wooden case from the bank. The documents had pockets. Pockets hold small things. I ran to my car, flipped open the binder. In a side sleeve, a small card I hadn't noticed in the moment's rush. 4 numbers in his writing, 417. Underneath, one word, always. April 17th. The day he gave me the gold key on my first apartment staircase. I pressed my thumb to the ink. My hands didn't shake as much this time. I turned the dial. Right, left, right. The lock gave with a soft sigh, as if grateful to be asked the right question. Inside, not stacks of money or jewels like in movies. Papers. A small notebook with his neat lists. A zip drive. A folded sheet with names and numbers. A tiny velvet box with Mom's silver ring inside, the one she wore when she cooked, because she said it was okay to get flour on it if a day tasted good. I sat on the carpet and pressed my fingers to my eyes until I could see again. The notebook held notes about the trust planning. Dates, witness names, notes about the public will, the one we had heard first. Next to it, he'd written in the margin, "Calm storm, not rewrite," a list of places where copies were stored. A section labeled "If she pushes," with simple instructions: call Jace, call Dr. Albert. Call Mr. Patel if you need someone who remembers what the porch looked like. The zip drive had a label. Porch camera pull, ask Patel. My breath caught. The photo from the unknown number. Not just a photo then. More. I called Mr. Patel. Do you have camera footage from that week? I asked, almost whispering. I might, he said. I saved too much, come over. We sat at his kitchen table with a laptop that had seen better days. He clicked, clicked, clicked. Found the day, found the hour. There was the porch, small and ordinary. There was Dad signing, unhappy. There was the man in the suit. There was Leela stepping into frame. And there was sound. It was faint. It was enough. Tom, it's just the simple version, she said, voice careful, low. You said you don't want to overthink. You said you trust me. This keeps me safe. It's clean. It doesn't change anything. I don't like the part about the business, he said. What about? You won't have to think about the business, she cut in too quick. I'll handle it. We'll make sure she's comfortable. He looked away. He looked at the camera without knowing it was there. His jaw set. I want to talk to Harland, he said. Later, she soothed. Just sign this now so I stop worrying. She touched his arm, light as a mosquito. He signed. The man in the suit smiled without his eyes and left. I watched it 3 times. The 3rd time I let the anger wash over me and then wash back out. I didn't have room for it if I wanted to stay steady. Can you get me a copy? I asked Mr. Patel. For you, he said. I can get you too. He patted my hand awkwardly. Your dad fixed my stairs when I had no money, he added. He said he liked when people got where they were going without falling. Me too, I said, and my voice cracked on the last word. Back at the house, Jace was waiting on the porch, cap backward, face tight. She came by the shop, he said without hello. Told the guys to start boxing equipment. Said she's listing some pieces so the weight is lighter. I told her no. I told her the trust says otherwise. She smiled and said I'm emotional. I'm not emotional, I'm mad. Thank you for telling her no, I said. We're going to do this right. We sat at the kitchen table, me, Jace, and Rosa, and made a list. Names, documents, photos, video, dates. It felt like building a staircase in the air and trusting that the steps would hold as we climbed. I sent a message to Dr. Albert's office. I called the bank manager to confirm what we took and what we left. Harlan sent me a text. Trust reading set for Thursday at noon. Opposing counsel confirmed. Opposing counsel. Leela had a lawyer now. Of course she did. If I closed my eyes, I could see her choosing a pen with a gold clip and sitting in a chair that made her feel taller. She would come armed. So would I, but my weapons weren't blades. They were dates and voices and steady ground. He had asked me for compassion. He had asked me for truth. Revenge, I realized, was going to be quiet. It was going to be me not moving when she wanted me to. It was going to be yes where she expected no, and no where she expected a flinch. That night I sat on the porch steps with Dad's navy sweater over my shoulders and watched the dark gather. The compass lay warm in my palm. It spun and then settled. Not north, maybe, but not lost. Tomorrow, I thought, we gather. The next day, we lay it out. After that, whatever storm comes will have to speak in full sentences. I woke before the sun and made coffee the way Dad liked it. Too strong, a little sweet. I needed the taste of something familiar while I walked into the unfamiliar. The house felt like a stage before a play. Quiet, dust floating in the first light, everything waiting for the people who would fill it with their own lines. The plan was simple because simple is strong. Gather what is true, put it in order, protect the house, protect the business. Let her show herself. Don't push her, she pushes herself better than anyone. First stop, the workshop. I opened the door with the key I'd always had and breathed in sawdust. It smells like work the way bread smells like hunger. The bench held his last notes. A pencil with teeth marks left by a mind that moved faster than his hands sometimes. I set my own notebook down beside his and made a list. Copy of the trust, the pour-over will, and the physician letter. Video from the bank, his message. Audio from Mr. Patel's porch camera. Texts from Leela to Jace about boxing equipment. Receipts from the locksmith with the date and time. Rosa's statement about being told to limit my visits. The note in the safe with the, if she pushes, list. Photo of the porch signing. Any attempt she makes to interfere between now and Thursday. Jace knocked on the door frame and stepped in. He looked around the workshop like a man checking a friend's pulse. He'd hate it if this went to somebody who didn't love it, he said, touching the handle of a plane like it was a shoulder. He made sure it won't, I said. He handed me his phone. Texts from Leela, the smiley faces and exclamation points like stickers on a bruise. He'd replied short and polite. No, we'll wait for the trustee. She replied, I am the trustee's better judgment. He didn't respond to that one. He also had a voice memo he'd started the minute she walked in. For my own notes, he said quickly. I live in a one-party state, it's legal. But I won't use it if you don't want. In the memo, her voice told the guys to start boxing tools and to get rid of the trash in the back, the trash being a stack of reclaimed boards Dad had loved. Those are useless, she said on the recording. No one wants old wood. My stomach tightened. He did, I murmured. He always did. We printed the texts and Jace's memo transcripts and put them in the binder. We made copies. We labeled them. We put the originals in a safe place. Truth likes order. Rosa sat at the kitchen table with a pen she held like a promise. I will write what I saw, she said, eyes steady. She wrote in simple words. She wrote about the days she was told to send me away. She wrote about the day Dad asked for the silver frame and how she found it in a box in the pantry under the label miscellaneous, as if a whole life could be put there. She wrote about the strawberries in the bowl that never got eaten because everything was for show at the end. She wrote about the way he sat in his chair and watched the garden and didn't blink for a long time. She wrote it the way she cleans, no mess left behind. I called Dr. Albert's office and asked for the letter confirming capacity, the one Harland said was in the trust packet already. The nurse faxed an extra copy. Your father was very clear when he spoke with the doctor, she said softly. He wanted things to be calm for you. I'm glad he planted the seeds for that. I thanked her. After I hung up, I looked out the window and saw Mr. Patel across the street adjusting his mailbox like it had offended him. I waved. He waved back. He crossed over with a small flash drive and a brown envelope. Video is here, he said, and I printed some stills in case something technical goes wrong. It always does when you need it not to. Thank you, I said. The thank you felt like a prayer. At noon, Harland arrived with a binder thicker than mine. He smiled when he saw my stacks. You work like your father, he said. It's a compliment. We're not going to find comfort in surprise, I said. We're going to find it in order. Exactly, he said. He set a small device on the table. Also, he wanted me to bring this if needed. It was a small recorder like the one in his office, but newer. He wanted clean audio, he added gently, in case anyone pretends they don't hear. I wondered when Dad had had the time and strength to think of all this. That's the thing about men like him. They do their most careful work when no one is looking. The doorbell rang. Leela stood on the porch in a cream sweater and jeans like she was there for a casual lunch. Behind her, a woman in a navy suit with a black leather folio, her lawyer. Leela smiled tightly. I brought counsel, she said, like a line she had practiced. I assume you don't mind. We welcome clarity, Harland said. He greeted the woman. I'm glad you're here, it will help. We sat at the table. We didn't offer tea. The house hummed, waiting for its next skin. I looked at Leela's lawyer, who had intelligent eyes and the look of a person who knows what a mess looks like and how to clean one without getting dirty. Our aim, she said, placing a hand flat on the folio, is to understand the trust, review the documents, and ensure my client's rights are respected. Perfect, I said. Aunt Joan's face did something I had never seen it do. It softened at the edges like a mask that had been worn too long was finally melting. She looked at me, really looked. You're enjoying this, she said, but there was no heat in it, just tired. I'm not, I said honestly. I'm breathing for the first time in a year. She swallowed. Her hands let go of her purse. I didn't think you'd keep going, she admitted. I thought you'd make a scene and then soften. I used to, I said. Then I learned who that served. Ms. Patel cleared her throat. We will schedule a full meeting next week to go over accounts, she said. For now, you are all to do nothing except breathe and keep receipts. Do you understand? We all nodded, even Aunt Joan. On the way out, in the hallway where the carpet swallowed footsteps, Ethan stepped from a doorway like a bad memory that forgot how to stay in the past. He had stubble. He looked tired in the way that comes from standing too long under your own reflection. "Olivia," he said, hands up empty like that meant something. "Please." I kept moving. "Counsel," I said, and it was not a weapon. It was a boundary. He moved to stand in front of me. "You don't even want to hear my side." "I did," I said. "Last year, in a kitchen, between pie and the phone where you texted my sister. I heard you. I believed you. It burned me. I learned." He blinked. "I never meant." "You meant to be comfortable," I interrupted. "You always do." Maya stepped forward. I felt her like a tide behind my shoulder. "Leave her alone," she said. Her voice didn't shake. "Leave us both alone." She looked so much like the girl I shared a room with just then that I had to look away or drown. Ethan's eyes flicked between us. He nodded once, the way people nod when they've run out of tricks. He stepped back. "Good luck," he said. "You too," I replied, and I meant it. I want even my exes to find the sky, just not by stealing mine. We walked out together, me and my sister, Ms. Delgado behind us like a lighthouse with legs. Outside, the air bit. We laughed the way you laugh when you're so tired the only other option is to cry. "Farm?" Ms. Delgado asked. "I have a copy of the order in case anyone still believes this is pretend." "Farm," I said. I could feel the dirt under my shoes already, even in the city, even on carpet. The "for sale" sign was a splinter in the skin of the field. It shouldn't have been there. It had been hammered in during a week when no one asked Nana what she wanted. It leaned a little now, like even the earth objected. The farmhouse sat where it always had, white paint flacking in places, front porch tilting like a book confused by its own spine. The wind out there is always different. It doesn't come from any one direction. It arrives. It has stories in it. We pulled up, tires crunching gravel. Ms. Delgado killed the engine and looked at me. "Ready to read the order if we need it." "I've been reading it in my head since dawn," I said. A silver SUV was already there. 2 people in long coats stood by the porch with clipboards. A third person, a woman with high heels that were a bad idea for dirt, pointed toward the barn. A realtor. A buyer's husband, maybe. The scene looked like a transaction pretending to be a walk in the country. Ms. Delgado and I stepped out. A deputy's cruiser came down the lane behind us, lights off, engine tired. He parked, tipped his hat. "Ms. Delgado," he said. They knew each other. Of course they did. "Thanks for coming," she said. The realtor turned. She saw us and pasted on a smile. "Hi, we're just..." "Leaving," Ms. Delgado finished for her, tone kind enough that it almost felt like permission. The realtor laughed the way people laugh when they think laughing harder will make the thing they want true. "We have a scheduled showing." I pulled the folded paper from my coat pocket. I passed it to Ms. Delgado. She passed it to the deputy. He held it like a hymn. He cleared his throat and read. "By order of the court, all transfers, sales, and non-essential disbursements from the Carter Family Trust are temporarily restrained." The buyer sighed. The husband looked relieved, like he'd been dragged there. The realtor's smile lost its shine. "We'll reschedule," she said, peeking at the paper, then me. "You don't have to be rude." "I'm not being rude," I said. "I'm being legal." A car we knew too well appeared at the end of the lane like a character entering at the wrong time in a play. Aunt Joan. Her tires threw gravel like words thrown in a fight. She parked at a wild angle and stepped out, beige coat flapping like a flag that forgot which way wind moves. Her eyes found the sign first, then me. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Do you know how this looks?" "Like we're following a judge's order," Ms. Delgado said. "Which we are. Please tell your agent to leave." The realtor tried again. "We can just walk the property. No harm." "No harm is what people say when they're about to do harm," I said. The deputy's boots made a sound on the gravel like small thunder. "Ma'am," he said to the realtor, "time to go." They went, finally. The SUV turned around with a lot of extra steering. The dust they kicked up settled back down on the land like memory. Aunt Joan stood in the lane and looked at the farmhouse like it had betrayed her. "You're ruining everything," she said quietly. "You have no idea what it's like to keep a family standing when the wind wants to knock it down." I stepped closer, not to fight, to be heard. "It isn't your job to keep us standing by breaking the floor," I said. I pointed to the porch, the boards that needed replacing, the stairs that needed a handrail. "This house doesn't need guests," I said. "It needs care." The deputy took a slow walk around the porch. He ran a hand along the railing, gentle, like it was a shoulder. "Saw this place when I was a kid," he said. "You had goats." "3, I said. "Daisy, Star, Trouble." The last one named himself. Aunt Joan's shoulders dropped a fraction. "I remember the goats," she murmured before she could stop herself. For a second, she was a girl in the driveway again, holding a bucket, yelling at me to hurry up before Mom saw the dirt on our shoes. Then she remembered she was the queen again and pulled her face back on. "I'm not the villain you want me to be," she said. "I don't want you to be a villain," I said. "I want you to be honest." She made a small sound. "You think honesty buys groceries?" "No," I said. "Work buys groceries. We all know how to do that. We forgot." The wind moved through the grass in a ripple like a big hand smoothing rumpled sheets. I walked to the "For Sale" sign. The bolts were cold under my fingers. The last time I unscrewed something at this farm, I was 14 and determined to take apart a broken hose reel just to see how it worked. Grandpa had come out, sat beside me, and told me the story of how he built the fence post by post. "You don't have to know the whole field to set the first post," he'd said. "You just have to be brave enough to start." I took my time, one bolt, then the other. The sign shivered, then loosened, then leaned like someone ready to sit down after a long day. I pulled it free and laid it gently in the bed of the truck like a thing that had done its job and didn't need to be here anymore. I handed the wooden stake to Aunt Joan. "You can keep this," I said. "A reminder, not a weapon." She stared at it like she didn't know what it was. She held it like it might burn. She didn't drop it. She didn't hold it up. She just held it. Ms. Delgado's phone buzzed. She checked, looked at me. "Ms. Patel says the locksmith will be here in an hour to check the locks," she said, "and a contractor she trusts can come by Monday to look at the porch." Warm relief spread under my coat. "We're really doing this," I whispered, mostly to myself. "We are," Ms. Delgado said, "one board at a time." A car door opened. I turned, ready to fight air if I had to, but it was not a fight. It was Nana, in the passenger seat of Dad's truck, wrapped in her blue scarf, eyes bright as creek water. Dad rounded the front of the truck and helped her to the ground. She had insisted on coming. Of course she had. She walked slow, each step a conversation with the earth. When she reached the porch, she put her hand on the rail. "Old girl," she whispered to the house, "we're still here." I stepped up beside her. "We are." She looked at me, her eyes full of something that most people call pride, but to me feels like permission. "You did it," she said. "You chose the noise that mattered." Behind us, Maya walked down the drive with Mom. Mom carried a thermos. Steam curled from the lid. She poured into paper cups and handed them around like communion. We stood there, a knot of people who had done things wrong and right and were now trying to do the next thing right. Even Aunt Joan stood, stake in hand, not knowing where to set it down yet. The wind was kinder now. The light more honest. I walked down the steps into the yard. The grass brushed against my boots like a blessing. I took my phone out of my pocket and opened the Quiet Skis app. No flight to book, no bell, just a background image of a sky and our line, "Fly smarter, not louder." I turned the screen to the house and smiled. "We changed what private means," I said out loud to no one and everyone. "Now it means quiet and kind." Time did what it does when you let it. It moved forward. 90 days later, the accounting lay on Ms. Patel's desk like a map of rivers that had overflowed and then been coaxed back into their banks. Money we thought was gone wasn't all gone. Some spent on things that made sense, repairs, taxes. Some spent on things that didn't, fees that were favors. Consulting that looked like a new handbag. Ms. Patel moved through it with her quiet knife. Not bleeding anyone, just trimming the lies. Aunt Joan stepped down as trustee officially. She didn't fight it. She signed the paper with a pen that shook and then lay flat when it was done, like a bird after a long flight. The court accepted Ms. Patel as permanent trustee. The farm wasn't sold. The porch got a new handrail that fit Nana's hand. The bedroom window stuck less. The goats are still a story, but I think about goats again and smile. Uncle Paul softened around the edges, like a winter that gives way to a slow spring. He took up fishing the way some men take up church. He says less. He listens more. Sometimes that's enough. Derek lost his job for a while. He called me one night in January and said, "They said it wasn't about you, but we both know it was." I didn't gloat. I said, "Make it about you in the right way now." He said he didn't know how. I said, "Start by not taking what isn't yours." He laughed once, a real laugh, small and a little ashamed. "Okay," he said. "Okay." JetShare sent us a letter in February with words like apology and misunderstanding, and we commit. We didn't post it. We didn't need to. We changed our taglines legal standing from applied to registered. Ethan's name disappeared from their website like it had been a smudge on a window. I heard he took a job in another city. I wish him peace. I don't wish us back to before. And quiet skis, we launched a program called Nana Lights. For every 10 empty leg seats booked, we cover one seat for a caregiver who needs to travel fast and can't afford it. Nurses on emergency flights home. Daughters who need to get to a parent. Sons who need to bring someone to treatment. The first person we flew under Nana Lights, Ms. Nguyen, the nurse from that night, we sent her to her sister, in a storm that would have kept her on the ground for a day. She sent a photo of her hand on the oval window with the caption, "3 squeezes, we made it." The app stayed small on purpose. We didn't chase explosions. We chased quiet. We built a team that didn't like stealing. We posted our code of ethics on our site like a flag. We held our own line even when investors wanted to turn our bell into a siren. Thanksgiving came again, like it does. This time the table was not Aunt Joan. It was ours. Not mine, ours, at the farm. The porch newly strong. The lights strung from tree to tree like fallen stars. We ate at long tables we borrowed from the church, not matching, not fancy, laid with quilt pieces under bowls so the wood wouldn't stain. People came, the ones who chose truth. Mom with her hair loose like she had remembered it could be pretty just for her. Dad in a sweater that made him look like the man he was when he danced with her in kitchens. Ms. Delgado in jeans, a chow with a pie she admitted was store-bought but in a dish she would never confess was not. Ms. Patel, who said she didn't eat dessert and then ate 2 desserts to be polite. Ben from Night Star drove in with his wife. Kay sent a video of her jump seat, clouds flashing by, with a message we played on a portable speaker. "Save me a plate, be there next year." Maya stood beside me, elbows touching. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. She had begun to volunteer with Nana Lights once a week, reviewing applications, choosing stories that sounded like ours before we knew how to tell them. She had stopped wearing the kind of makeup you put on to look like someone else. She wore the kind that lets your face look like yours. Aunt Joan came late. She walked up the gravel with her shoulders not quite so high. She carried a casserole like an offering. People always think offerings have to be speeches or apologies that use words like accountability. Sometimes they're green beans with toasted onion crumbs on top. She stood at the edge of the lights and looked unsure. I walked to her. "There's a place," I said. "I didn't think you'd," she began. "I'm not building a prison," I said softly. "I'm building a table." She nodded, tears making her eyes shine. "I don't know who I am," she admitted. "Start with honest," I said. "The rest will come." Later, when the plates were scraped and the night was full, Nana asked me to bring her coat. She wanted to walk, she said, to the edge of the field. I took her arm. We moved slow. The grass breathed. The stars were bright like the past, and the future and the now had all decided to be friends for once. We stopped by the fence. The wire hummed softly. She squeezed my hand 3 times. "I love you." I squeezed back. "I love you too." We stood there, 2 women who had carried fire and water and most of the heavy things you can carry. We said nothing for a long time. We didn't need to. The quiet sky inside me was louder than any bell. "If you're still with me, if you're here at the end of this long road, here's what I want you to take into your own night. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep anyone's house warm. You don't have to stay at a table that feeds you lies and calls it love. You can walk out the front door, even if your hands shake, and still be the kindest person in the room. You can build something quiet. You can make it strong. You can invite the ones who choose truth to sit by the light with you. Justice can sound like a bell. Revenge doesn't have to sound like a scream. Sometimes the best revenge is a life built so honest it leaves the people who broke you speechless. When my phone buzzed that first night in Aunt Joan's dining room, it wasn't a flex. It was a promise kept, to Nana, to the girl I used to be, to the woman I am. It was the sound of my power finally ringing in my own hands. And the next time laughter met me at a door, it didn't cut. It made a little breeze. I walked through it, shoulders back, and carried my sky with me. The light doesn't ask permission to arrive. It just comes, let it, then share it. To everyone who's ever walked into a room alone and felt the eyes and the laughs and the weight of being underestimated, remember, you might be walking in alone, but you are not empty. You are not a question mark. You are a bell. And when you ring, ring for the ones who can't yet. Ring for the ones who raised you. Ring for yourself. Ring, and then let the quiet come back in like the best kind of home. Then our concern shifts to the trust's conditions, she said. My client believes they are punitive. My father believed they were protective, I said. Of his work, of his people, of me. Leela leaned forward. Of you, she said softly, like holding a small, dangerous idea. Always of you, he was blind about you. Heat rose in my cheeks and then left. And you were blind about him, I said. You thought love was a lever, it's not. She opened her mouth, I held up a hand. One more thing, I said. I slid a printed email forward. A request from a staging company to schedule a consult to refresh the property to sell quickly, requested yesterday by Leela, withdrawn after notice. I slid another paper. A bank alert, attempted inquiry on trust accounts from an unlisted email, blocked, logged. Her lawyer pinched the bridge of her nose. We will not be attempting further access, she said quickly, before Leela could speak. We understand the trust limits. The smirk tried to climb onto Leela's face, realized it was not welcome here, and fell. In its place, something raw, not sadness, not anger, an emptiness that made me want to look away and also made me want to be kind. Dad had asked me to be kind. I kept my voice soft. You can stay in the guest room, I said. If you stop pushing, if you stop trying to turn the house into a storefront. She laughed once, a sound like a glass breaking and someone pretending it was fine. And accept an allowance, she said. Sit in a room you pick for me, wait for you to let me into the kitchen in the morning. She lifted her chin. I don't do small. You do lonely well, though, I said, and the words weren't meant to hurt, but truth sometimes does that without asking permission. You did it in a crowd for months. Harland cleared his throat gently. We have two paths, he said, practical and kind. Compliance and calm, or contest and cost. If you contest, you may live here during the contest by agreement if you follow the rules, or you may choose to move out and we will arrange the stipend and the temporary support. If you comply, the stipend starts immediately. Leela's lawyer leaned to her ear and whispered. Leela listened. Her jaw worked. She closed her eyes for a moment and I saw a flicker of the woman my father had loved, not the softness, but the wanting. She wanted to be okay. She just wanted to be okay her way. I will not sleep in your guest room, she said finally, voice crisp. I will take the stipend for 60 days while I make arrangements. After that, do not expect to hear from me unless it's through counsel. She stood. She smoothed her sweater. She looked at me. For once, no smirk, no show. You win, she said. This isn't a game, I said. It's a home. She held my eyes for 1 second longer. Not for me, she said, and was gone. The room exhaled. Papers rustled. The red light stopped its steady stare and slept. Mr. Patel patted my shoulder the way people do when they want to help without breaking anything. Jace grinned, relief making him look younger. Rosa texted me from the kitchen, I am making stew. Come home. I stood by the window and let the city look back at me. I felt tired in a good way, like after a long climb to somewhere that finally points to the view you were hopping for. I pressed my palm to my collarbone where the compass lay warm. I whispered a thank you to the space between things where my father might still be listening. We still had to move her things. We still had to guard against the little pushes, the last-minute twists people try when a story doesn't end on their terms. But the big shape was settled. The house was a house again. The business was a business again. My chest had room for breath. I walked out with the binder under my arm. On the sidewalk, the sun felt like something I could trust. We did it slow, the way he asked. Leela's things went into boxes labeled with her name in my neat hand. Rosa supervised like a general, gentle and firm. We didn't break anything. We didn't throw anything away that wasn't ours. We stacked the boxes in the front room, requested a pickup date through her lawyer, and waited. On the last morning before her move, she walked through the house with a look I had never seen on her face. Something like awe, something like regret, something like realization that she had tried to own a sky. In the kitchen, she touched the yellow paint and smiled, small and private. "I chose this," she said. "I know," I said. "Some days I like it." She turned to face me. "You weren't supposed to be a problem," she said, like a memory and a confession. "I thought if I rearranged things long enough, you move into a smaller corner all on your own." "I did," I said, "for a while." She nodded as if my agreement surprised her. She looked at the door, the yard, the place where Dad had cut watermelon on a hot day. "He loved you," she said. "It was like the sun loved you." "People can love more than one thing," I said. "Sunlight is big." She laughed, tired. "You talk like him," she said, and it did not sound like an accusation. "For what it's worth," she added, "I did love him. My way wasn't yours, it wasn't his, but it was mine." She picked up her purse. "I hope the house is kind to you." "It already is," I said, "when people stop trying to rewrite it." She left without looking back. The truck took her boxes. The house exhaled. The quiet after a person leaves carries the shape of their footsteps for a little while. Then even that fades. The rooms felt like rooms again. The kitchen was a kitchen. The key on my necklace felt like part of my throat now, like a word I was always saying without speaking. I called Jace and met him at the shop. We set a calendar for the business, jobs to finish, clients to call, a plan to keep the name clean. We found Dad's estimates, his notes about what he wanted to try, a sketch for a staircase with a curve so gentle it looked like a question mark turned into a hug. Jace ran his finger along the pencil line. "We could build this," he said. "We will," I said. We did, 3 months later, in a house with a baby who liked to nap in the afternoon sun and parents who had been careful with their dreams. I stood at the bottom step and touched the rail. It felt like an answer. At home, I put Mom's photo in the middle of the mantel and Dad's note under the river stone where it had always wanted to be. Keep it simple. I made pancakes on Sunday and burned the first one on purpose because he always did. I invited Rosa to stay on as long as she wanted, not because I needed a housekeeper, but because the house needed her soft, steady hands. She cried when I told her. Then she wiped her eyes and said, "We will clean the windows next week." They still think they are clouds. We started the scholarship he'd written into the trust. I met the first 2 students we picked, both with hands the kind of steady that makes good work. One wanted to study carpentry. The other wanted to study architecture. They sat at our kitchen table with forms and pens and hope. I told them about the smell of pencil shavings and coffee, about the way a staircase holds more than weight. It holds days. It holds decisions. It holds people. One evening, I took the truck out to the lake where his photo on the program had pretended peace. Real peace was better. The water was honest. I parked and sat on the hood like I used to when I was 19 and thought the sky was a letter I could read if I stared long enough. I took the compass out and set it on the metal. It spun. It settled. I laughed softly. "You never did find north," I said. "You always found home." In the wooden case from the bank, tucked under the trust documents, I found one last note a week later, one I had missed in the rush. Short in his hand. "If you wonder whether you did it right, you did. If you wonder whether I knew what you would do, I did. If you wonder whether letting time work was the right way, it was. The world teaches us to make noise. You learn to make space. I am proud of you. P.S. Don't repaint the kitchen unless you really hate it. The yellow looks good on mornings when the sun is shy. I left the yellow. It warmed the winter. It ran beside the blue of my mother's vases like a truce. As for Leela, I heard things. We had counsel handle the last of it, simple and clear. She took the 60 days and then an apartment she could arrange to her taste. She sent one letter through her lawyer, a tidy list of the few things she felt had been returned with less care than they deserved. We sent a gentle note and a gift card for a new vase because one was chipped in the move. She tried a few small pushes by text, I heard, comments about the business, about Rosa's hours. But when all she got in reply was silence or a copy of a paragraph, the pushes stopped. Truth is heavy. When you let it sit, it makes a room quiet. People asked me, when they heard, how it felt to win. Winning wasn't the word for it. It felt like putting a heavy book back in the right place on the shelf and watching the whole row sit straighter. It felt like not apologizing to a house for coming home. It felt like a story that had a messy middle and a clean line under the last sentence. If you're listening to this and you've sat at your own table with someone's smirk pointed at your heart, I don't have a magic fix. I have this. Trust your gut when it feels like a small stone that never leaves your pocket. Gather your facts. Write your dates. Choose your witnesses. Move slow. Speak low. Don't let anyone rush you into a room you don't own. Some people will try to rearrange your life with soft hands and soft words. Watch what they move when they think you aren't looking. Watch where you start to stand in the hallway so they can take the living room, and then step back into your own space. Revenge isn't always a shout. Sometimes it's a door you quietly lock behind you because the house is yours and peace is your guest. Sometimes it's a binder full of dates that keeps a story honest. Sometimes it's a kitchen you keep yellow because grief can also be bright, because mornings still happen, because love leaves things behind that you can actually use. I still talk to him when I'm measuring wood, when I'm choosing a screw that doesn't look like it can hold anything and then does, when I'm driving the truck and the radio finds our song, when I stand at the top of a staircase we built and look down at a room that will hold people in days and laughter and sore feet. He doesn't answer, not out loud, but the compass needle settles, the house settles, my breath settles. At the very end, Harland sent me a small package with no note. Inside was the little brass compass, polished. It didn't find north that day either, but somehow it pointed straight at me. I put it on the mantle, next to Mom's photo, under the river stone that says what I think is the best advice I've ever been given. Keep it simple, keep it true, keep your home your own. And if a smirk ever walks into your life again, remember this. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is put a document on the table, a truth in the room, a boundary on your heart, and let quiet do what noise can't.